What's the philosophy of astrology and spiritualism? How much these two things are interconnected to each other? Today we will try to get it scientifically and what should be the approach towards the planetary combination during birth of any individuals onward to their whole lifespan. How our Indian traditional philosophies are more accurate about free will and destiny. And why not? भारतीय दर्शन में ज्योतिष शास्त्र को वेद का नेत्र माना गया है. So astrology a language of energy because all physical and mental life is a manifestation of energy and specific energies, that is planetary combination during a childbirth, that operates in each of us. As already Einstein mentioned that energy is equal to mass times speed of light squared, and this is proven mathematically. So this assumption is proven that the whole universe is actually a symphony of energy. Let's begin. First, how should we approach to knowledge? We should here mention Jung's theory of personality. According to Jung, there are 4 primary ways of knowing which Jung called the 4 basic psychic functions: thinking, feeling, sensation, and intuition. Thinking and sensation can be grouped together since analytical thought is based primarily upon data from the outer world received through the senses. Intuition and feeling can also be grouped together since these functions arise from within the individual and are not totally conditioned by the sociocultural milieu of the time. Also, knowledge gained through intuition and feeling is subjective and personal, in the sense that it can't be proved or objectively verified. The thinking faculty functions through the systematic classification and discrimination of the fact, which are then arranged in certain pattern according to the type of logic, that is deductive or inductive, employed. While the faculty of institutions, on the other hand, reveals to the individuals an immediate insight into and perception of the workings of the whole system being considered. Intuition, man's power of direct perception and immediate knowledge which circumvents, transcends, or penetrate through the slower workings of the logic-bound intellect. Here, modern science overlooked the intuitive function in man, perhaps assuming that intuition is merely thought prejudicially colored by personal feelings, and this is not justifiable. So, intuitive awareness, expressed in nonverbal form, comprises a greater range of experience than the verbal and algebraic symbols of language and mathematics can yet convey. Here, we can see the distinction between thinking and intuition in short. The psychologist C.J. Jung has also written about the limitation of statistical viewpoint. In his book The Undiscovered Self, Jung in 1958 says, "The statistical methods show the fact in the light of the ideal average but does not give us a picture of their empirical reality. While reflecting an indisputable aspect of reality, it can falsify the actual truth in most misleading way. This is particularly true of theories which are based on a statistics. The distinctive things about real fact, however, is their individuality. Not to put too fine a point on it, one could say that the real picture consists of nothing but exception of the rule, and that, in consequence, absolute reality has predominantly the character of irregularity. So you cannot measure quantitatively the love, the response to beauty, the character of a person, not unless you make of that person a computer-like machine, and this is what our present-day science is trying to make of individual persons. Astrology is unique in that it includes both the aspect of wholeness and art, and that of details, precision, and science. But the emphasis is on the art of interpreting the cyclic ebbs and flows of the basic energy and activities of life so that the existence of an individual person is seen as an ordered process of change, a process which has inherent meaning and purpose. So astrology deals essentially with a quality of being, and it is just such a qualitative language that transcends the domain of a statistical studies. We ought not to underestimate the psychological effect of the statistical world picture. It displaces the individual in favor of anonymous units that pile up into mass formations. Now let's understand what are universal principles. Many scientists have come to believe that there is an invisible organizing pattern within living things, a sort of psychological pattern which guides and determines the form that energy will assume. Same like all manifestation and observable pattern in the material universe, that we call it the laws of nature or physics. This tendency toward patterns in nature can be seen in everything from evolutionary theory to the fairly predictable patterns of human physical and psychological development. Another word commonly used to describe this structural phenomenon is form. Here, what means form? Actually, form is one of man's oldest ideas. The Greeks had numerous theories of perfect forms, from Plato's eternal form to Euclid's quantitative relation in a space to Pythagoras' a study of numbers and geometry. The physicist-philosopher L.L. White has written an important book called Accent on Forms in 1954, which deals with what he calls the formative principles in all life. In fact, he says that the most comprehensive natural law expresses a formative tendency. So we can say that each class of things was set to possess essence, and that essence was considered to be not a static quality but rather a source of activity. The deepest reality was seen to be composed of inevitable essence, and the task of philosophy was to apprehend those essences. The essence of anything was the ground of the thing's being, that which make the thing what it is. The forms observable in nature, we are not static entities but incarnate ideas in the sense of Plato's idea. The source of these eternal ideas was seen as the universal mind, the domain and the repository of the essence of all forms that could exist and all ideas that could ever be thought. The universal mind, incidentally, is similar in many ways to Jung's conception of the collective unconscious. The Hindu holy book Bhagavad Gita states that the mind is the slayer of the real. A modern author has written, "The death of ego is the birth of everything else." Utilizing astrology can provide a perspective upon and detachment from our mind and ego patterns in order that we may again occasionally perceive what is real. For, as long as we are victimized by these patterns, we are in total darkness. The birth chart reveals these patterns in a clear way that enable us to deal more effectively with our habit and with ourselves. Astrology gives us a sense of perspective and a means of gaining awareness on our lives so that we don't get hung up on one experience, frustration, or blockage. It can get us in touch with the dynamism and cyclic nature of all life. Astrology can provide us with faith in something greater than mere ego consciousness, and therefore faith in one's real self, and hence help us metaphysically and intuitively about our existence, to know that all the world is stage, and that we are merely playing a part in the vast drama. Such a realization can give us a sense of perspective and humor that alone makes life easier to deal with, and in addition, such a realization leads one eventually to consider the ultimate question of life: who is the actor in this drama, who is the director, and who is the author? To identify with the totality of this living process rather than identifying, as most people do, with one or two limited dimension of experience.